The purpose of these lessons is to show you the logic behind the most basic Chinese characters, beginning with the simplest pictograms, and later combining these elements to create more complex characters. This lesson contains 6 characters, 5 of which are based on the character for fire. There are 2 important variations of the fire radical, so I've divided up the characters into 2 lessons depending on the appearance of the fire element. This is the second installment, in which the fire is reduced to 4 horizontal dots at the bottom of a character. The first character began as a primitive man, blackening his face and arms as camouflage while hunting or attacking enemies. This painting of the body evolved into tribal tattoos, and probably the wearing of masks during sacred ceremonies. In a later script style, the blackened face was misinterpreted as the opening of a chimney, and the tattooed body was thought to be 2 fire elements, one atop the other. Whether this change was intentional or not, no one knows. In either case, this character is pronounced first tone, hei, hei, and both origins mean black in color. You probably recall that 天亮了 means it's daylight, and now 天黑了 means it's dark outside. 天黑之后，你不要一个人出门。Don't go out alone after dark. Activities carried out under cover of darkness are often illegal. This hidden underworld is called 黑道 in Chinese, literally the dark way. And their smuggled or stolen goods are 黑货。有麻烦的话，你去找你黑道的朋友。If you run into trouble, you can always go find your gangster friends. 黑货不好脱手。It's not easy to get rid of smuggled goods. Before going on to our second character, we need to review zhan from lesson 15, meaning to interpret the cracks appearing on tortoise shells or animal bones that have been heated over a fire. When hei combines with zhan, we have the third tone character, dian, dian, which means a small dot, such as the dot produced when writing brush lightly touches paper. As a matter of fact, when describing characters, as the Chinese are often asked to do, today's fire element is called 四点火, 4-dot fire. And if you're wondering why zhan is the phonetic element in dian, consider that English J in the name John is actually a combination of D plus ZH in phonetic spelling. Without that plosive D, we would probably have the French pronunciation for Joan of Arc, Jeanne d'Arc. Not at all the same as English John. So, phonetically speaking, there's nothing surprising about zhan becoming the phonetic for dian, and it will appear in many future characters. Dian is a very commonly used character, so we'll begin with meaning of a dot, spot, or a point. 在 X 光中可以看到白点. White spots can be seen on the X-rays. And yes, people just say X as in English. 地点 means where something exists or takes place. 约会的时间跟地点说定了没？ Have the time and place, literally, spot of the meeting been decided? 重点 is the main point or emphasis. 他这本书的重点是什么？ What's the main emphasis of his book? 要点 means the important points or basic tenets of a philosophy. 儒家思想的要点是什么？ What are the important tenets of Confucianism? 论点 is one's argument or the point at issue in a debate. 你这个论点是不可能打动人心。This argument of yours will not convince them, literally, move their hearts. 这一点我早就想通了。I came around to realizing this fact, this point, long ago. In English, we have several words meaning a tiny bit, all borrowed from the translations of dot in other languages. For example, a jot, a whit, an iota, a speck, etc. Our next examples use 一点 for just this meaning of a little bit. 我差一点跌倒. I almost stumbled and fell. In some phrases, such as this one, the number one 一 can be dropped with no change in meaning. 我差点跌倒. Here are two more examples with or without 一. 有半个小时的光景，你去吃点东西吧. There's still about half an hour yet. Why don't you go get yourself a little something to eat? 因为在外面贪玩，他没能早点回来. She was having so much fun outside that she didn't come home earlier. Whenever emphasis is needed, the number one 一 is retained. As in the phrase, 一点也不. 你一点也不像你的妈妈. You don't resemble your mother at all. 她一点也不在乎她花心. She doesn't care at all that his eyes wander and he's unfaithful to her. It's also possible to double the 点, 一点点, for more colloquial style. 我会说华语、英语跟一点点法语. I can speak Mandarin, English, and a little French. If one small dot is 一点, then half of that, 半点, must be even smaller. It's often used negatively. 他说的话没有半点可以相信. You can't believe a bit of what he says. 点 also refers to the dots on a clock face, indicating the hours, so it can mean time. 到点了，我们开会吧. It's time. Let's start the meeting. One could also say 时间到了 with the same meaning. 时间又到点了. It's that time again. 什么时候 means when. 几点 more specifically asks what time. 你哥哥下班后几点到家? What time does your brother get home after work? Anyone familiar with regional Chinese cuisine will probably have visited a Cantonese restaurant at some time, where dim sum were served. These steamed meat, seafood, and vegetable-filled dumplings, accompanied with sweet and savory pastries and endless cups of tea. Dim sum is the Cantonese pronunciation of Mandarin. Dian xin. 想到可口的点心，我就会流口水. My mouth waters whenever I think about those tasty snacks. Traditionally, most Chinese people had a very simple breakfast of fried dough wrapped inside a flatbread and hot soy milk. Or maybe rice porridge with a bit of salted vegetables and shreds of dried pork. Nothing resembling what English-speaking countries would call a filling breakfast of meat, eggs, potatoes, pancakes, and what have you. The Chinese had something more along the lines of a French petit déjeuner, of bread with jam or a crescent roll with a cup of coffee. So now, 早点, short for 早上的点心, is sometimes used to refer to any kind of simple breakfast. 早点, 她从来吃不多. She never eats much for breakfast. As I showed you with the writing brush, 点 also means to tap lightly, as if writing the simplest Chinese brushstroke, the dot. Here we have 点子, meaning an idea that pops into your head. 我有个点子, I've got an idea. 大家想出了很多点子. Everybody came up with lots of ideas. 你一下子说到点子上了. You've hit the nail on the head. Again, recalling the brush movement, 点 means to tap something when counting it. 4700元, 请你点一下. 4,700 yuan. Check and see if that's the correct amount. When calling the roll, we often 点名, tap the names so as not to lose our place on our list. 点名时, 有3个会员没到. During roll call, there were 3 members who hadn't arrived. 妈妈点名, 要你扶着她去. Mom specifically said she wanted you to assist her on the way there. And again, the brush movement or tapping movement of the head means to nod one's head. 点头. 爸用力地点着头来加重他的语气. Dad nodded his head forcefully to add emphasis to his words. 出门时, 守卫向我点了头. The gatekeeper nodded to me on my way out. The third character in today's lesson originally consisted of a pot with meat in it, a flame underneath, and the 煮 phonetic. Later, the meat was lost, the pot switched with a different one, and upward curling steam added for effect. The final version used today dropped everything but the phonetic above and far below, pronounced third tone. 煮, 煮. It means to boil, cook, or stew. Ma 在煮开水. Mom's boiling drinking water. You will recall I mentioned that Chinese people often boil their drinking water as a matter of habit, considering tap water to be less than safe. There's always a water kettle or large thermos bottle filled with water in every kitchen. Boiling water is part of most people's daily routine. 豆子要煮多久? How long do the beans have to cook? 我想煮面来吃. I think I'll cook up some noodles to eat. Before introducing the next new character in this lesson, we need to review 能 from lesson 18, because it's the origin of our fourth character today. You will remember that 能 is actually the drawing of a bear whose strength and ferocity were taken to symbolize any form of power, potential power, or possibility. The 4-dot fire reticle was later added to 能 in an attempt to describe the ferocity and destruction of a conflagration. Pronounced second tone. 熊,熊. 熊熊大火之后,小木屋就没了. After that raging fire, the little wood cabin was gone. Finally, after 能 was borrowed to mean power or possibility, the language adopted the bear plus fire pictogram as the name for the animal itself. 熊. 爬山时你要小心，有人说山上有熊. Be careful while hiking. People say there are bears in the mountains. After learning the names of several animals, namely the ox, goat, pig, snake, and bear, we have to add another one, the dog. The earliest pictogram looked more like a pig with a dog's tail. That morphed into what appears to be a dog sitting and begging, and finally into a dog sitting and looking straight ahead. This character is pronounced third tone, 犬, 犬, and is a radical that will enter into many future characters. However, although 犬 itself looks very simple, it's a technical word, more like English canine, not the everyday word for dog. For this reason, I have only one literary example for 犬, the name used by a person of lesser status when referring to his or her son. 犬子. This level of polite speech is very formal, but it's a reminder of basic Chinese courtesy. Always denigrate yourself and elevate the person being spoken to. Referring to one's son as a dog belongs in this category. As an aside, I once had a college student whose Beijing parents called him 阿狗, the usual name for dog in Chinese. I wondered how a mother or father could use such a demeaning term for their son in front of me, his teacher. One day I asked the family's neighbor, also from Beijing, about this, and she explained that it was based on superstition, that if the gods above knew how much they dearly loved this son, they might become jealous and take him from them. Dogs in Chinese society were at one time considered one of the lowest of animals. So it was out of a desire to protect their child that they called him a worthless dog. Of course, the son also thoroughly understood this as part of his Chinese upbringing. So, why talk about dogs? Because our next character is such a common one that enters into countless phrases. It's a drawing of dog meat roasting over a fire. Pronounced second tone, 燃, 燃. It originally meant simply to ignite, to burn brightly, with dog meat as the phonetic, but was soon repurposed as a pronoun to mean this, and later as an adverb, just like this, as clear as day. As a way to remember it, try the English expression, your goose is cooked, meaning, this is it. You're done for. There's no way to avoid what's coming. I'll admit it's not exactly the same, but if you learn your dog is cooked, you should be able to recall how to write the character. Meat, dog, fire, and what it refers to. This is the way it is. Now for lots of examples. 然后 means and then afterwards. Literally, this after. 我会去泰国玩几天，然后到日本去。I'll stay in Thailand a few days and then go to Japan. 然而 translates as however, literally, this and yet. 他的生意倒了，然而他没有灰心。Her business failed, but she didn't lose heart. 分是分手了，然而他不停地想念她。They'd broken up. However, he thinks of her constantly. 天然 is the phrase for natural, literally, the way everything is under the heavens. A natural wonder, such as a waterfall, deep gorge, or rock formation, is 天然奇景. The meaning of already can be rendered 已然, literally, finished, this. 他已然是个很有名的画家了. He's already a well-known artist. 必然 is the expression for something unavoidable, the way it must be. Literally, must like this. 要是妈妈知道，爸必然也知道. If mom knows, of course dad does too. 你追问这件事情，必然会惹人生气. By asking such probing questions, you're bound to anger some people. 水跟电都是必然的开支. Water and electricity are unavoidable expenses. 显然 means clearly, obviously. 他显然是为了你才去的. It's obviously she only went because of you. 显然，我哥很想大打出手. My brother clearly itched to brutally beat the guy. 公然 means in public, openly, brazenly. 公然违法的人几乎都是黑道分子. Those who openly break the law are almost always gangsters. 你想要我公然出卖朋友吗? Do you expect me to brazenly sell out my friend? 固然 means of course, no doubt, admittedly. Literally, it's solid, hard fact. But this. 他能来，固然很好，不来也没有关系. If he can come, of course that's fine. But if he can't, that's okay too. 她固然很好看，可是品性差. It's true that she is pretty, but her moral character isn't. 要不然 and its short form, 不然 both mean otherwise or else, literally, if not this. 别着急，要不然我就不跟你说了. Don't be so impatient, or else I won't tell you. 你得小心一点，不然会中他的计. You must be a bit more careful, otherwise you'll fall into his trap. 你得早点去，不然就上不了火车了. You should leave earlier. If not, you won't catch the train. An especially useful four-character 成语 or fixed idiom is 不以为然. To object, disapprove, or take exception to. Literally, not take it this way. 我可不以为然. Sorry, but I don't think so. 妈不以为然地看着爸爸. Mom looked at Dad thoughtfully. 需要这么多花吗? 我男友不以为然. We need this many flowers, my boyfriend protested. Here is our color chart with today's 6 characters. 黑点燃煮熊 and 犬. Here's a basic summary of today's characters. 1. 5 of the 6 characters in this lesson contain 四点火, the horizontal 4-dot fire radical at the bottom of the characters. The first character, 黑, meaning black, is a man with blackened face and arms as camouflage or possibly participating in a religious ceremony. Intentionally or not, this version later morphed into a blackened chimney with a double fire element underneath. 2. 黑 paired with 占 gives us third tone 点 for the small dot written with a calligraphy brush. There are many derived meanings from this writing brush movement. Legend has it that, around 1,000 years ago, a Chinese general wanted to thank the men under his command for their valiant efforts in defeating the enemy, and so ordered army cooks to prepare savory snacks from various regions of the country in order to give his soldiers a taste of home. This gesture was meant to express the general's, quote, 一点点心意, or in English, a little token of his regard for them. This, supposedly, is the origin of 点心, meaning a snack, pastry, or refreshment eaten anytime outside the main meals. 3. To boil or cook is 煮, a rather complicated depiction of a fire under a steaming pot of boiled meat, which was later reduced to the phonetic 煮 plus the fire radical underneath. 4. The pictogram for a powerful, ferocious bear was borrowed early on to indicate power or potential power. Today the character 能. Since the animal needed its own character, the pictogram for a devastating fire, 能 with fire underneath, pronounced 熊, was adopted for the animal too. 5. The technical term for a dog, or canine, is 犬, not very useful by itself except in the names of various dog breeds. However, the dog radical appears as a component in many other characters, one of which is 燃, meaning dog meat. Although not commonly eaten today, there are still a few dog meat aficionados among the Chinese, who still have their own dog meat festival in China. 6. 燃 serves as the phonetic in another character, also pronounced 燃, originally meaning a bright, hot fire for roasting dog meat. It has the 4-dot fire radical underneath. Apparently, from the idea of a bright, hot fire, this new character came to be used as a pronoun for this, what is clearly in front of you. 燃 has been incorporated into many, many phrases as a noun, conjunction, or adverb. Now you will find a short quiz on double, triple character, and longer expressions. Answer using only the characters learned so far. Thank you for watching and listening.